This episode of Bright Hearth is brought to you by a well-worn story, the Kings Ridge Elderberries, Live Oak Integrative Health, Gray Toad Tallow, Keepwise Partners, Indigo Sundry Soap Company, Joe Garrissey with Backwards Planning Financial, and by our supporters at patreon.com. Viral trends and fads constantly sweep through the mommy blogger, Instagram influencer, trad wife social media world. From wild pregnancy diets to birth story ghostwriting to natural medicine and more, it's easy to get caught up in the whirlwind of what's in this week. Now, lots of this can actually be genuinely helpful. Social media is a great blessing when it's used well, and these areas are no exception to that. But not all trends are created equal. Some offer genuine wisdom and encouragement, while others can lead to unrealistic expectations, unnecessary guilt, or even harmful practices. In a world where everyone has an opinion on homemaking, childbirth, family life, home birth, how do we sift through the noise to find what is truly good and true and helpful? Well, today we're diving into the world of homemaking and home birth to separate the timeless from the trendy, the true from the unhelpful.
Her children rise up and call her blessed, her husband also, and he praises her. Many women have done excellently, but you surpass them all. Proverbs 31, 28, and 29.
Now we're talking about some birth stuff. Talking here with my boo. Talking about some birth stuff with my baby girl and you, Bright Hearth listener.
I didn't know if you were actually going to do it or not.
Do what?
That?
We always introduce Bright Hearth
thing.
with a jingle, don't we?
Did this take place of our song?
No, it's going to be, I think I even sang it in the right key.
Okay.
I think that song is in the key of G.
It was great.
What is it called? Like
I
a pocket
loved
full of raindrops? What's that song? Our Bright Hearth song.
I don't know, but you changed it like once and I was horrified.
Tiptoe through the forest, dew petals.
No, that's from Bambi. I know from my Disney soundtrack days.
Lexi has a truly exhaustive knowledge of Disney soundtracks. This is something that you all should know. And had I been her father, it would have been different. But look, that is a homeschool acceptable thing, like back in the 90s.
Yeah, like
2000s.
Sixpence None the Richer. You didn't seem to get that the other day. You were like,
I'm
what?
only vaguely aware of who that is. Name a song, Sixpence None the Richer.
Homeschooled. There she goes.
There she goes.
Although I think that's actually a cover by somebody else.
There she goes.
There's other
again.
popular songs you would know. But I guess you weren't homeschooled, so you didn't listen.
No.
Or download the whole
I was
discography
not.
from the local Baptist church you attended.
They had that?
Yes, they had it. They had like a whole Christian CD section. So I just like took and downloaded everything.
All right. Chime in, Bright Hearth listeners. Did you have a Baptist CD library at your church? I want to hear it. A homeschool Baptist CD library. We welcome back, everybody. It's good to be here with you. We are going to be talking today, of course, about really actually Lexi's taking us through this episode because she said, I have a plan. We're going to be discussing some viral or like trendy home birth. Basically, guys, I don't
Not just
follow a
home
lot
birth,
of
but
accounts that
birth.
are into this sort of thing. I mainly share funny reels with my friend Ben Garrett. So that's kind of what I do. When
You
I'm on the
actually
internet.
use it, yes, for that purpose, Haunted Cosmos fodder, and to figure out which people have used your music and set them to the videos of the chubbiest toddlers you can find.
I love
to
it.
laugh at.
That's legitimately one of my favorite uses of Instagram. I look at my music from Harsh Songs usually.
You're like, oh,
and I
this
look
is a
through
good toddler.
What reels has this song been used in? Because it tells you, and then it's like, look, that's a good toddler. That's a quality chubby
Playing in the
toddler right
dirt.
there. It's playing in some dirt. I love a good toddler playing in the dirt. So Lexi, what are we talking
Okay.
about today? Get us there.
Well,
Take us into
I
it.
do think we should talk a little bit at the end just about like practically, because that's kind of what people had said. You guys should do an episode about this. And I think maybe we did one a while ago, but I feel like most of the information about this has actually been geared towards our in the kitchen episodes.
Oh yeah, sure.
So I thought it would be beneficial for both of us to talk about this, to get your perspective. As I've been diving into some of this more so this pregnancy that you've been helping me think
Wait,
through.
are you pregnant?
Yep.
You're so trim and petite, I can hardly tell.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I am, as I pat my belly.
Lexi texted me 2 things today. I'm going to read them both for you.
No.
Because I literally copied them in my notes for this episode. One of them, this is not mostly related, but she said, I literally don't give a crap about reading. All I want to do is fold laundry and watch large family cooking shows on YouTube. Help. So that was one. That's a pregnancy text. And then the other one, I can't remember exactly what it was. Oh, yeah, here we go. I'm going to tell you later I want ice cream. And you say, no, all caps. So,
I am feeling it. I have less than 10 weeks, and I am like, how do I just keep feeding the people? Which is part of actually why we're talking about what we're going to talk about today. How do I keep doing my duties and not make it all about me being pregnant and tired at the end?
Yeah.
And for me, that means how can I find as many inspirational YouTube videos about large family logistics?
Yes. Well, you are a delightful pregnant woman.
Thanks, babe.
Yeah, I got you. Well, take us in. What's the first aspect of this that you want to talk about?
Okay, well, I kind of want to just hear your reaction to some questions I have, or like phrases you hear really often in the both Christian and non-Christian birthing community. I think maybe you could preface it with like, I feel like you have a high view of women and I feel like you have a high view of birth. I feel like you have a high view of the purpose of medicine, high view of children. All that to be said, listen to our responses with charity, because we actually do value women being cared for and
of course
children being cared for. But this is kind of an area that I feel like women can often assume everything with it is good because it's so bad, because the opposite end of the spectrum is so bad. We can almost unthinkingly sway the other way entirely and not realize, well, that's just kind of some weird theology, or it's just a flat out lie, or that's a fleshly desire that you have there.
Can I like summarize for a second, make sure I'm understanding?
Yes.
You're saying on the one side, you have a ditch of people not taking care of pregnant Americans.
Correct. Literally, yes.
Who are having babies and they're just like, making it into a big medicalized process, not caring for how can we get you back to work quickly.
And the reason I would say that is because in the whole world, maternity care in the U.S. is the most dangerous. Women in America are still dying of childbirth at rates that women in other countries are not, including third world countries. So yes.
Yeah, we've certainly experienced some of that from like a medical perspective. You go to a hospital and they're like, you get a doctor in there who's trying to jam you full of a bunch of interventions you don't need, and then it's like, can you get back to maximal I was going to say Excel spreadsheet, and I combined them. Excel spreadsheet data input as quickly as possible and get your baby off to a daycare somewhere. But on the other hand, you can have this, and I'm going to caricature it, but the far other ditch would be like craft your perfect birth story. And everything is going to be exactly like this. And if it's not, you have a total right to throw a fit about it. And if people aren't making it basically all about you, and like you get a birth photographer who's like doing birth glamour shots, and you're like doing a birth film, it's a birth documentary, it's a birth-umentary, and you're like, the star of it, and everything's me. Yes. Kind of, it's like what's the Bridezilla? Version of of birth.
That is what it is.
Okay. And I know I just did a huge caricature, but we're talking about like not falling into either of those ditches.
Did we even read this at all for the opening?
What? No, I didn't even.
Oh, because that was really good.
Well, read it for us.
That does help.
We're going to do a cold open right here in the middle.
Dang it.
That's all right. So what book are you looking at here?
Okay, so I've talked about this book before. It's called Redeeming Childbirth. I've read it multiple times.
Who wrote it?
Oh, sorry. Angie Tolpin, who is a Christian. Her husband is a pastor. They used to at least run in very similar circles to Dale Partridge.
Did this inspire this episode, this passage?
No, because we had multiple people asking us like before Christmas, please talk about this. But as I was reading it today, I was like, actually, this kind of sums up what I've been thinking about, though.
Are you going to read it for us?
Yeah, I'll read it. I do highly recommend this book, especially if you have like fears surrounding.
You ready? Ray, hit the Bright Hearth music again for high drama. Talking about
God was clearly present in my births, and I was so blessed that he was. His presence was an act of his grace. It wasn't because of anything I did. So how can one invite the Lord to her childbirth? How can Christian women who deeply desire to experience God intimately in childbirth and to give him every part of their lives prepare for this special event? By experiencing God throughout the days, worshiping and growing in her faith. Through acts of service that come from a heart that adores her God for who he is, because she knows him intimately. She speaks to him, reads about him, understands his word, and seeks to glorify him by pointing to him. Practicing these disciplines of the Christian faith is what prepares a woman to experience his presence in a new way in birth. The central theme in our society is that birth is all about you, your body, and the baby. Because of this reality, we as Christians need to be aware of how frequently we are consumed with thoughts regarding ourselves and how we are feeling and thinking. In the stages of labor and birth, it will be an even harder challenge to keep your eyes off of yourself and your pain. But acknowledging the battle is the beginning of conquering it. Prepare yourself with verses that glorify him and are about God, as well as music that helps you to cry out with him. Talk to your husband about this concept of true worship and your desire to focus on him. Ask him and your other birth attendants to help you keep your focus on things above and not on yourself. While in childbirth, every Christian woman is faced with the opportunity to focus on the Lord or to focus on herself. To distract your focus from yourself and the pain of labor and birth, in the most intense moments, you need to exercise the discipline that you have developed to focus on worshiping God. For some, worshiping in song may be the ticket for focusing. For others, it may help to meditate on scripture or recite prayers of worship. Any way you choose is unique to your relationship with God. The key is to keep your focus off of yourself and fully on God. So I really liked that. It made me wonder what her questions, what she says about postpartum. I know she has a whole class on postpartum, but it made me just wonder how she looks at postpartum prep differently than a lot of these. Because there's some huge birth accounts that are extremely liberal, extremely feminist, will teach you how to have an abortion with herbs.
Gross.
They will also teach you how to make the best postpartum broth you can possibly think of. So the Christians have to really think about this differently. And I just loved how she was kind of reminding you, if the culmination of all things is the glory of God, that also includes in your pain and your labor.
Yeah.
And that's like what her whole birth, most of her, I mean, she's very, very practical. She's good at teaching you the physiology of birth, but she's also very much so like her coping mechanism for the pain is to keep your eyes on Christ.
Ah, I see. Attention business owners. Proverbs tells us, in the multitude of counselors, there is victory. At KeepWise Partners, we aim to apply this principle to your business as you work to build Christendom in your labors. Running a small business is challenging, but you don't have to go it alone. KeepWise Partners offers expert bookkeeping services with the care and integrity you'd expect from a partner who shares your values. And to take it a step further, our advisory services bring invaluable insights to you as you aim to meet your business goals. Visit keepwisepartners.com or call Derrick Taylor at 781-680-8000 to schedule a free consultation. KeepWise Partners, bringing finance and accounting excellence to the way you build your business. Are you tired of not feeling well and of having your doctor treat your symptoms without taking the time to investigate what's really going on? Rebecca Belch at Live Oak Integrative Health is here to help. Rebecca is passionate about helping women and families achieve the health that God designed in our bodies to have. With more than 20 years of experience as a critical care and labor and delivery nurse, she now serves as a licensed practitioner of functional medicine. Her goal is to address the root causes of dysfunction in your body and to help give your body what it needs so that you can create a legacy of health that extends to your children and grandchildren. She provides a wide range of testing options to uncover your underlying health issues, such as fatigue, weight gain, and gut problems. Then she works with you to develop a plan that focuses on nutrition, hormone balance, and long-term habits to promote enduring health. She also specializes in health for women who will become or currently are pregnant. This time is often overlooked and is the most important window to create generational health. Check out her website to book a free discovery call right now and get a $50 discount on any of her service options. You can do this on her website, liveoakintegrativehealth.com. Hey friends, let's talk about gray toad tallow. They're a family-owned small business dedicated to making products that nourish your skin with the purest, most wholesome ingredients. For centuries, people have experienced the moisturizing and healing properties of tallow, and Grey Toad Tallow is committed to sharing these benefits their family has experienced with you. Besides their commitment to offering you a healthy skincare option for your family, Grey Toad Tallow's desire is to remain affordable and accessible to be a blessing to others. For more information and to try a balm sample pack, visit greytoadtallow.com. That link will be in the description along with this code, which we would urge you not to forget to use for 15% off your order. That code is all caps, BRIGHT15, BRIGHT15 for 15% off your order, and we truly appreciate your business. If you have a young family like me, you work hard every day to ensure you care for your wife and kids. Providing for a young family is challenging with rising costs, and it doesn't look like things are going to change in the future. Maybe you've thought like I have, I wish I'd started investing years ago. My family would be in a better financial position. As they say about trees, the best time to plant a tree was 10 years ago. The second best time is today. Don't let the benefit of time go to waste on your financial planning for retirement or inheritance for your generations. Joe Garrissey with Backwards Planning Financial has been working with us to make the best plan for our family. He's a Christian who works with one of the largest and most trusted financial service companies in the world. He's been helping Lexi and I work towards our financial goals and helps us navigate the complexities of the markets. Whether you have millions in assets or you're just starting to invest, Joe Garrissey can help you reach your goals to grow the kingdom and leave a good legacy for your generations. Visit backwardsplanningfinancial.com. That's backwardsplanningfinancial.com, or call 615-767-2555 to speak with Joe to prepare for the future. The testimonials presented may not be representative of the experience of other clients and are not a guarantee of future performance or success. So take it. So though we've set some ditches.
Yes.
We've introduced. Give me some.
Okay.
Give me some of the business.
So, do women deserve advocacy in labor? Is it owed to them? Is it a divine right that they have an advocate in labor?
Well, that's interesting. There's a wrong way you could say that and a right way that you could take it. Like, for example, justice is about giving people what they're owed. And so if you are, a husband and your wife is pregnant and you're going into something difficult and that is painful and a place where she can be exploited or taken advantage of, or where she's not really going to be able to protect herself
Yes.
very well because she's busy. Right?
Really?
She's busy. I've been there 6 times, going on 7 soon. Justice does demand that people who are involved in that process, her husband, of course, but also people like midwives, doctors, nurses who are involved in that process, they have a certain charge to provide reasonable, loving care, protection. So there's that side of it. It's reasonable for a woman then to say to a doctor or a midwife, hey, I need this.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when we start talking about things that we're owed, of course, you can have a grabby-handed way of being owed something, or you can have a gracious, reasonable way of being on the someone owes me side of something. And I think this is where that comes into play, where a woman needs to make sure that she's being very careful to delineate what she is owed, she's owed in terms of justice, and what she desires. And that's really one of the biggest areas where this could go wrong. If, for example, she thinks, well, I've crafted my birth plan and I'm owed it going that way. But maybe it doesn't. Maybe you had planned for a perfect natural delivery at home, and instead you have a C-section. And you're thankful to God for nobody dying. Right? So that's a distinction between what you desire and working reasonably for it and what you are owed.
Yeah, and you wouldn't say that it's wrong to voice your desires about things
Of course not. No. In fact, I would recommend that women in general work on more clearly verbalizing what they desire especially when it's something emotional or something that's making her feel emotional.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not getting this. A lot of the time, a feminine instinct is to not ask for it, but to kind of hint at it or pout if she doesn't get it. I mean, this is a sinful instinct, to be clear. But in general, and this applies to specifically then, birth and this whole process, it's like, if you really, let's make a concrete example. If you really want to give birth in a tub, and a lot of women do, and it's fine. It can be a helpful thing from what I understand. I've never done it. Never will. You should ask for it. And if your husband and they can all reasonably accommodate it, that's great. And if you want a tub, though, you shouldn't be like, man, look at this tub video. What do you think about that? Which is fine.
Yeah.
You can do that too, but just say it. As a dude in the room right now, I'm just saying, we want you to say it. And most of the time, husbands are like, oh, cool. That's what you want. Okay. I can do that. Or he might say, look, I know you want to do that. I wish that I could provide that, but I can't. I don't have the money or I don't have the whatever. And that can be reasonable. Mm-hmm. A good husband might say no to a desire. Mm-hmm. And then, be kind to him.
I think I asked you early on when I was kind of starting to explore some of these other resources that we'll talk about later. Mm-hmm. I think I had said, what am I allowed to ask for in prayer? Mm-hmm. Is that how I worded that?
Yeah, I remember you asking this. Mm-hmm.
Because there is a lot of bossiness, I feel like, sometimes with, what's the word? I keep hearing the phrase be used, I'm believing God for this.
Yeah.
I'm believing God for this.
Yeah, I've heard that one.
Yeah, and you had kind of just said, well, there's a reason there's two different words for requests, petitions, and supplication. Supplications are requests on behalf of others.
Yeah, supplication is just another way of saying a very earnest request. So it could be for someone else or...
Yeah.
But yeah,
that was helpful reminder. And I think you had kind of said something like, God is a good father. So he does want us to ask him for specific things.
Exactly, yes.
So that kind of freed me up from worrying, am I in sin for asking God to give me a shorter labor?
I don't like it when and I haven't experienced this in a long time, not since the last time we visited a Pentecostal church probably, or one of my crazy coworkers at Starbucks who was super Pentecostal. But they would pray I decree and I declare that, blah, this and that's going to happen. And I decree, and I was like, that doesn't seem like praying. If my son came to me and he said, I decree and I declare, we're going to get brownies after dinner, Dad. I decree and I declare that we are going to watch the television until 9:30 tonight, and I decree and I declare it. I'd be like, do you mean, can I? Did you mean to say, Daddy, may I watch, or Daddy may have a cookie? It's we have a good father. The example in prayer is that the Lord Jesus uses. Does a father give his son a stone when he asks for bread? Of course not. The son asks for bread, though. He didn't demand it. He didn't come and yell and carry on.
Yeah.
But at the same time, nobody should feel guilty for asking God for good things.
Yeah. I think, yeah, it was helpful. It was very helpful to me to get out of my head of, am I sinning in doing this?
When my kids ask me for good things, it glorifies me.
Well, and I like something that Ben said recently when he was preaching about how Christians need to stop overqualifying every request they bring to God.
Yeah,
I loved that.
If it's your will, it's okay to say if it's your will.
Yes,
that's fine. But it's always implied. It goes without saying, we're Christians, we know this, that we're not asking God to violate his own will. And guess what? He won't anyway.
Yes.
But when we're bringing, when my children ask me for a good thing, it actually glorifies me in a lowercase g way, because it demonstrates that they trust me and that they believe I am a source of good things. Mm-hmm. So when we ask God, Lord, please give me a quick and easy childbirth with no complications. Mm-hmm. Pray that every day. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
And then if God wills that you have a 30-hour labor instead, and there's a complication or something else, something short of that, then you go, well, he's working all things together for my good. Mm-hmm. And so including this bad thing, this thing I didn't want, when I look back, I will agree with the Lord that what he gave me was a gift, better than what I was asking for.
Correct.
In the fullness of all things. And that might not be a trite and easy thing for you. You can't always figure out, like, oh, God made me have a 30-hour childbirth because if I had gotten in the car,
I mean,
2 hours earlier.
A friend that she had a baby that died in a home birth, and
very
and
hard.
her husband's first response was, the Lord gives and the Lord takes away.
Yes.
So it's not like I've talked to women where this doesn't go right. I haven't had this go right myself all the time. And one of the things that was the most helpful when that happened for us was you telling me it's okay to be disappointed in how things happened, but it's not okay to overlook the mercies and the things to be thankful for.
Yeah, it's okay to be disappointed in faith. It's not okay to be disappointed without faith.
Yeah.
If I'm disappointed where the Lord knows, like David in the Psalms is full of regret, disappointment, fear, anger, desire that's not fulfilled.
Mm-hmm.
And if we are disappointed and Lord, I really am bummed that it didn't go that way, please help me.
Yeah.
To have a reaction of faith, to trust you in this. And I mean, even in the very hard things like you mentioned.
Yeah.
Like the loss of a child. I mean, that's one of the reasons that I wrote Drawing Blood, that song, that's very much related to like miscarriage and the loss of children, because this is a common trial for the world, for the Christian, is to lose children in miscarriage and in other ways. I think I used to talk a lot with one of our first elders at the church about how common, he would bring up often just how common child loss was for, and also like a mother to die in childbearing through most of history. And so, when you look to fathers and mothers in the faith from times past, if you even do a little bit of digging in their lives, you'll find that many of them lost several children, and not just in childbirth, but sometimes up even into the young adulthood. And that many of them ended up losing a wife, many pastors and many men, because it was just, I mean, if you think about it, we've managed to reduce infant and mother mortality so much.
Which is why even though I don't like the language surrounding it, it's why I understand why people use the language of birth trauma, because it is such a volatile thing. I don't like that verbiage necessarily, but it's just inherent in it that it's a risky, high emotions type event in a woman's life. So
yeah, as long as it's not saying that like we're going to ruminate on our trauma.
No, exactly.
Traumatic things happen.
Yes.
Just because the psychology industry and therapy industry is like weaponized that trauma term until they're like trauma farmers. They're trying to look for it and make more of it.
I think the bummer about it is that maybe more husbands aren't equipped to know how to disciple their wives through that. And so they do turn to it's not necessarily bad. I'm very thankful. I had an older woman the day after I got back from the hospital with Alfred who checked on me and was very stern in a good way with me in terms of my emotions. And I'm so thankful for that.
Yeah.
But ultimately it was you helping me process over a few weeks. And someone's not necessarily in sin because they're then struggling with being scared of birth after that. We have to be understanding of other people and just know like the Lord is sanctifying them in a different way, and that I don't need to judge them because of that necessarily.
Yeah, and as like a husband or as a, coaching his wife through some of these things, you have to just remember that your wife is the weaker vessel. You're supposed to treat her with gentleness. And that also means at the same time that you need to help her. So you can't let her, if you love her, wallow in like get stuck in a hyper ruminative state on trauma and pain, and instead of lift her out of it, acknowledging it, that it is very difficult, not minimizing it. You don't help somebody by minimizing the suffering, but you do need to help your wife say the answer isn't going to be in staring more and more into the abyss of my own pain and trying to understand the world and myself through that by staring more and more into it. The goal is always to lift our eyes, Colossians 3, to the right hand of the throne of God, where our lives are hidden with Christ.
Which is why I love Angie Tolpin's book, is so much of it is just get your eyes back on Christ.
Yeah.
Okay, so that leads me to the next question, which is then, do you think it's possible for birth to be pain-free? Are Christian women under the curse, or has their body been redeemed?
In the same way that the human body for the Christian is still subject to death and pain and deterioration, breaking bones, getting the flu, getting cancer, dying, all of that, the woman's body is still subject to the bondage of the curse in her physical body. So I know there are movements within, even what's the one, hypnobirthing talks a lot this way. Hypnobirthing.
There's like the pain-free birth movement. It is
there you go. There's
a
whole
different from hypnobirthing, but yeah.
It kind of shows up across a lot of different things, but yeah, there you go. Where again, because we fall into the ditch of the medicalizing of birth, where it's like birth has been treated in the West as a medical condition to be treated instead of a natural process that God designed the female body to undertake. They can say and so all this pain language, ladies, is really like a result of this nasty Christian theology that says in pain she shall bring forth children.
Well, these are Christians saying this, though, that I'm talking about.
Yeah, and I'll get there, but it's like people will say, we've heard that these nasty Christians with their bad theology, they're outdated, like anti-feminist, anti-woman theology. They were just trying to control women's bodies and with fear and superstition. But just know, women, your body it's highly evolved to give birth. Really, you can do this. It doesn't have to hurt if you do it right. If you get in, and then they always offer some sort of method that if you follow my method, it will be pain-free. And the thing is, a lot of the methods, and there's a core to that that's true. It's not evolution, but God designed the woman's body to give birth, to bear children and give birth. And it really is the case that if you can, in your mental state, not freak out and learn how to go with the flow and breathe, and my body was made to do this, it certainly can reduce the anxiety and pain of birth. Absolutely. In normal complication-free births.
Yes.
However, lots of births aren't normal and complication-free. Some of them are long labors. There are issues that sometimes things happen. So when it comes to the theological claim, on the other hand, like the Christian version of this, that the woman is redeemed from the curse, and so she can access pain-free childbirth if she does it in faith. If she does the right method, and that's going to include some kind of like appeal to faith. I would dispute that. I don't believe that's true. I don't believe that's true any more than it would be true to say that if a Christian would just access the correct frame of mind and faith, they would never get cancer and they would never die.
Yeah, because that was the verse I brought up to you. I hear it a lot, is the Galatians verse about he became that curse for us. The curse that was put on Eve's childbearing, he became that for us, so you don't have to experience that anymore.
And what I would respond to is in the book of Romans, Paul says that creation itself has been given over to bondage. It's eagerly waiting and groaning, I'm paraphrasing, for the revealing of the sons of God. So when mankind is revealed in his resurrected glory with the Son of God, the earth will be fully and finally freed. Creation will be fully and finally freed from the curse and fully renovated. And new heavens and new earth will be completed, all of that. But we do not live in that time yet. We still have this body of flesh. That's why we still sin. That's why we still die. We still need to be buried. The Lord willed that this would be his plan of redemption, that the gospel would go forth in this age, and certainly would have transformative effects on humanity. But it would not remove all of the sin, suffering. Instead, it would enslave those things to serve God's people.
Yeah.
So now pain and suffering serves our good because our Father's making it serve our good.
That's another thing she does a really good job of talking about in there is part of God's purpose for pain in childbirth is to sanctify you.
Yeah, that's this is what God is doing in this age. He is, again, this is Romans 8, when he says that we are more than conquerors through Christ, and he lists all these things: famine, nakedness, sword, pestilence, all these things that are like kill you. Then he says, but in these things we're more than conquerors, which means that God, like, what is more than a conqueror? What is more than someone who's defeated an enemy? It's someone whose enemy has been enslaved to serve them. And so now he enslaves sin and death. And like, think of the cross. God enslaved death to destroy death.
Yeah.
He's doing that in us.
I am of the opinion, after diving into this a lot deeper, this pregnancy, is that Christians should be having the best births out there. Not because, I do think their C-section rate should be lower. I think they should be seeing midwives more often, but because they have the correct outlook on suffering in general, even in those horrible circumstances. And therefore, like you're saying, that is making them victorious through birth, even if things are not going correctly. Mm-hmm. But I also think it's okay for us to say we live in a world where oxytocin exists. Mm-hmm. Receptors in our brain are really there. So it is possible that some people can experience pain-free or less painful births than others. So I don't think that should be something we should be debating. Like, obviously it's possible because God made it that way. It doesn't mean it's how it is for every person, though.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and we can't guarantee it by our actions.
Correct.
That's one of the most important things, because that's where the prosperity gospel goes wrong, is that, like, we fall in another ditch often where we're like, we hate wealth. We like reject the reward. God actually motivates people by the means of reward constantly in the Bible. And you can be a righteous, wealthy person. You can, like, read Psalm 37. You can ask for healing. All of those things. Where we go wrong with it is when we basically turn it into a guarantee where it's an input output. Mm-hmm. If I do exactly this right, I will get cancer will go away, mm-hmm. or perfect birth will happen. Mm-hmm. And the flip side then is, if I don't have the cancer go away, or I don't do something perfect, my birth isn't perfect, it's because I did something to screw it up.
Yeah, you just have to admit that is the other side of the coin.
And it's like, can I screw things up? Absolutely. However, sometimes things happen for other reasons than my actions. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like, for example, in the providence of God, he's doing something I don't understand.
Yeah.
Which is his prerogative.
Okay, so then how would you tell a woman, because a lot of these people will say, well, you're telling the woman to think of herself as cursed.
That's really funny. That's
which
a good
is
rhetorical move.
Very offensive.
No, I would not tell any Christian on their deathbed, dying from death, which is a result of the curse, that they're cursed.
Okay.
Nor would I tell someone who has the flu that their fundamental truest self is that they're cursed. What I would say is that we live in bodies that are subject to the curse, but that our truest selves in our life. This is why Paul makes it, he's so at pains in Colossians to say that he's constantly talking about, put to death what is earthly in you. Lift up your eyes to the right hand of God, where your life is hidden. Paul suffered in his body and died ultimately. But yet they couldn't touch Paul, really. Mm-hmm. His truest self, who is not subject to the curse, his most enduring self, the self that will put on immortality in the fullness of time. Mm-hmm. So we need to think clearly about where we are. It's a good rhetorical move. Like, man, that would be a good. So you're saying that
because the whole thing is,
cursed.
If you believe you're cursed, you're going into birth assuming it's going to be hell. You're already clenching. You're already closing off those receptors from the pleasure hormone.
Yeah.
So you're doing women an injustice by telling her that she's cursed.
Yeah, and this is what I would say. I would not tell a woman to go into birth or any part of her life. Every day I wouldn't urge you to get up and be like, oh, freaking cursed body, probably going to get sick again today. Freaking cursed body, probably going to get indigestion from this meal. That's not what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to receive our food with thanksgiving and go through life in faith. Mm-hmm. So I would never tell a woman to meditate on death.
I was listening to Leslie Burris, which I don't know where they are theologically. She seems much more sound than a lot of people out there, but I don't know, can't vouch for her fully. I liked that she said, we forget that birth is a good work that God prepared in advance for us, and we don't worry about that curse in the other ways. Like, my sandwich making is cursed. My laundry doing is cursed. But for some reason, we really get hung up on it in the labor.
Yeah.
When we really should just be thinking, this is the next good work God has for me, though.
Correct. Yeah.
Instead of obsessing about the curse part. So
we it's about walking in faith.
Yeah.
And faith is not in denial about the state of the world today and the fact that death is coming for me. Because it is. Like it really, either the Lord will return or I will die. But either way, though I die, I will live. Like that faith says, faith reckons things properly in light of eternity and not the passing, fleeting vapor that is life. Like the last chapter, see my published works, last chapter of Haunted Cosmos is all about this. It's called Death as a Vapor, but it's the same idea. This cold and flu season, fortify your defenses naturally with the Kings Ridge elderberry syrup and elderberry products. They grow the freshest elderberries on their Indiana farm, cold press them into the tastiest syrup around. Their products are packed with antioxidants and vitamins to boost your immune system. Use code Bright Hearth, all caps, Bright Hearth, for 10% off your first order at tkrfarm.com. The Kings Ridge elderberry syrup. Taste the difference, help push back the curse. That's tkrfarm.com. Here at Bright Hearth, we love to support Christian family businesses that are doing great work, which is why we're so happy to commend to you A Well-Worn Story. A Well-Worn Story is a sewing studio based in New Glarus, Wisconsin, and they're making handcrafted leather and canvas goods. It's run by a husband and wife team, and they focus on making beautiful products from natural, high-quality materials that only get better with age, telling your unique story. Made in rural America, this Christian family business makes high-quality handcrafted leather and canvas bags, belts, and wallets, and these are heirloom quality, stuff that you can hand down to your next generation. You can order online at www.awellwornstory.com and use the discount code BRIGHTHEARTH, all caps, no spaces, to save 10% on any order. Here at Bright Hearth, we're all about helping you not turn into a girl if you're a boy, or into a boy if you're a girl. You know what might be doing that to you? The soap in your shower. So we are pleased to introduce you to IndigoSundrySoap.com, link in the description, of course, who can provide you with soaps and more without any of the nasty stuff. And because they love you, they're giving you a discount code, guys. So use code, all caps, Bright Hearth, for 10% off your whole order. Support this great Christian company and support Bright Hearth Podcast at the same time. Check them out at IndigoSundrySoap.com. And of course, that link is in the description.
Okay, so the last question I have, I hear this a lot, that birth is sacred. It's healing to give natural birth. What would you say? Is birth sacred? Is it a sacred act? Is it a healing act?
I hate all of the language that you just used. I don't like it.
I don't either.
Is it sacred? What do you mean by sacred?
Yeah, they don't.
You know what I mean? Like, what do you mean?
True.
Do you mean like mystical and spiritual? Right? Like, what do they actually? Let me read the definition of sacred. There are several. So the one would be connected with God or the gods, or dedicated to a religious purpose, and so deserving veneration. So in that case, I would say, is birth deserving of veneration? It'd be like, no, generally not. It's not. That doesn't mean it's not valuable.
Mm-hmm.
Like spanking my kid isn't sacred. It's this thing where we're trying to like re-enchant the world because materialism and modernism and modernity has destroyed and disenchanted everything. And so we're like, we're just molecules moving, man. Again, see my published works. Like Haunted Cosmos is all about this.
Have you heard how they're like calling baby showers now blessing ways?
Oh my word. Good for them. Good for those people.
They, them, whoever they are out there.
The answer isn't that we need to like make everything into something that is like particularly mystical. Mm-hmm. Now, is it true that creating a human, like that seeing the creation of an immortal soul knit together in its mother's womb and then brought into the world is a glory? Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So if you just mean that it's connected with God in some way, I'd be like, yeah, and then everything can be sacred in that really broad definition.
Yes.
But if you mean it in like a religious rather than secular, I would say, wow, man, calm down. I'd be like, just be normal. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
What was the other thing you said? Sacred?
Healing. A lot of people will like say it healed them from past traumas, I guess. I don't.
Okay, cool. Yeah, okay. If like giving birth helped you get out, if the past trauma was like I was a huge self-obsessed jerk and then I had a kid and the Lord hit me over the head with it and he made me less self-centered, it healed me. I'd be like, cool. Of course, you're talking instrumentally. The Lord is the one who healed you through the instrument of having a child. Great. That's fine. But again, like if you're talking about it where you're fixing your hope for healing in some soul satisfying level, it's the same thing as saying, if I can just get a husband, it would complete me. You should want a husband if you're not married and you're a woman. Like that's a good thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But you have to still think clearly.
Yeah.
It's a good gift. It's not God.
I think that's another example of looking to something other than Christ to be like, if you did have a bad birth experience, you're trying to solve that with a better birth experience versus letting Christ help you process that.
Yep, exactly.
Okay. So in general, I want to hear some of your thoughts. Like, what are your general principles when you're thinking about my time of postpartum, our time as a family is postpartum? What are you thinking? What have informed your thoughts? Does scripture inform your thinking on this at all? What has been helpful practices for us as a family? I have some thoughts, but as a father, go.
Yeah, I just think in terms of duties, like that's the main. It can sound like contractual when I talk about duties. I think people can take it that way. But when I say duties, I really mean like, what am I made for? What was I made to be and do? And that will be expressed in duties God has given me. And all of those should be suffused with love. I should do my duties with love. I don't do them because, well, this is just a duty that I have. And I don't really love my kids, but I guess I have to feed them because it's a duty. No, I love them. So I'm thinking about like the normal provision, protection, Lord, husbandman, savior, sage, glory bearer as a husband and a man. In my home, and just thinking, well, this is a time when it is normative that a woman needs a time for recovery physically. So I'm thinking like, how can I protect my wife? Make sure she's home. Make sure that she's not having lots of demands placed on her by outsiders, by people outside of the home. That she's getting rest. That she's sufficiently freed to lay down and recover and spend time with the new baby who is supposed to be with her and like being nurtured by her in this time. I'm thinking of making sure that she's fed. Like, is she getting good food? And not just like fast food and convenient stuff. Like, is she nourishing her body? And I'm thinking about making sure that period is of a sufficient length of time. So there's no pressure to be like, well, if you were, church is tomorrow and you just gave birth 3 days ago, like that was a long time ago. You should really go to this thing. You should be ready for it by now. I'm like, no, I'm always erring on the side of rest, recover, be strengthened before we go back out. I'm also thinking about handling like the stressful logistical things. Like there's all these little things, birth certificates and
oh my gosh, like we're so bad at getting those.
I know we're terrible at it.
Whoa, wow.
Paying midwives, like making sure everything's taken care of on that front so she's not anxious about things, taking care of the other kids, hanging out with them. So I always take 2 Sundays off of preaching. And then a lot of the duties that I do that I just kind of normally have, even the ones that I'm still doing, I'll try to do at home or be around.
Yeah, I like to have, I don't follow any of the 5-5-5 rules, 40 days in bed. What is it? 2 days in bed, 2 weeks around the bed, something weird like that. Those are all man-made rules. Because you don't follow those accounts on Instagram.
I don't.
I like to lay low the first week as much as I can. in bed or on the couch or wherever, just like physically recovering. But I do like to try within reason to run as much of the household as I can the second week Brian is home, so that there's at least some sort of transition before he goes back to work and I'm not fully thrown into the fray day one he's back at work.
Yeah.
I think that's where a lot of women can go wrong, is you should probably taper that time of help. And it's not, I mean, it's still like very low standards. I'm not necessarily going places, but yeah, I think it's helpful to have you here. And we've had times where you're not here. So
yeah, my boss called me at 4:30 in the morning the third day after Ari was born.
Yeah, and it was very hard. I had a very hard transition.
Yeah.
So
I was like, I'm at home.
And we've also had transitions where I was thinking about this today. The one child that we did go to church the next day was my only newborn that ever got sick.
Yeah.
And that was hard for me at first. Like I kind of can't, now that we have older kids, not so much, but I kind of can tend to want to do it all.
Yes.
And I had to realize, actually, this is for the child too. This is not just for you.
Yeah.
It is a protective thing for the child. I was actually looking at something today because there's this, thing out there that it's actually good to boost the newborn's immune system and to get them around people and get them as sick as possible. And like the evidence just shows it's not true, because
it just seems dumb.
Because you, more often than not, little baby ends up on antibiotics, which leads to more antibiotics, which leads to worse immune system. So
it's bad. So
you have to realize too, part of this, it's not about what you want. It's about your duty now, which is part of what I had such a hard time transitioning to with my first child, is like, it's about what's good for the child though.
Yeah. And that, even like, so think about the night. We may be different from other people. I'm not usually up a lot at night with babies.
Mm-hmm.
Because Lexi breastfeeds and she's made for this, like to be near the child, nursing baby, up at night, sleeping more through the day when she's able to, especially for the first week or two, like definitely there. I'm thinking I'm going to sleep at night and be prepared through the day to be of service and as much as much strength that I can to take care of everybody else, like keep the load off of her, and so she can ease back into that load. One of the problems is that you're never more attractive than, right? But you're unobtainable.
All right, moving on. Okay, but so this is what I want to say is women can get really fussy with this though.
Yeah.
And they can expect the village to care for them. They can be mad that grandparents didn't show up to live with them for a month to 6 months. They can be envious of the Chinese women that get this whole lay-in period in their hospital.
What's up with the Chinese women?
Occasionally, I saw it again recently. I saw videos going around at how amazing like the birthing and the postpartum is in Chinese hospitals, and how like we have so much to learn as Americans. And I'm like, do you know who pays for that though?
Well, there's like 3 babies in the whole country.
And do you know, that's what I was saying. I'm like, you literally understand this is a one-child policy country.
It was until very recently,
historically speaking. Yeah. And so that's why they could afford that. And they're literally robbing people to be able to pay for this. Why do you want to replicate that in America? But what I want to say is, if you have a desire as a woman postpartum, either do what Brian said earlier about the birth, tell your husband, this is what I care about postpartum.
Yeah.
I feel really cared about that Brian is around. I'm not necessarily as concerned about the workload around the house, but I feel really loved if he is physically present. It is helpful to me. If there's something you want, though, you need to obtain it yourself. You need to not assume other people are going to do it for you. You need to not be fussy about not getting it. You need to also not be pouty that things just did not go your way. My last postpartum did not go my way at all. But you don't need to then make everybody for the rest of your life pay for it because you didn't get your herbal sitz bath right away.
Right. It's like the guy in high school. It was like, if the coach just would have put me in fourth quarter, we would have won state. And he's just thinking about it for the rest of his life. That was the moment where it all went wrong.
So when I'm thinking about postpartum prep, I'm actually just strategically thinking about how to meet my family's needs in that time. Yes, I might buy myself new pajamas. Yes, the baby may get new pajamas, or we had to get a bassinet for this house. But my main thing isn't making sure I get what I want. It's actually me being able to take the time to rest in the house by making sure I'm meeting all those other needs.
Yeah.
So Brian isn't necessarily cooking from scratch in that time. He's cooking food I spent time preparing. So it's still another example as a helper. I'm taking most of the workload and preparation to have a postpartum period upon myself. I'm not expecting it from other people.
Yeah, it's similar to like if I'm going to be taking an extended leave of some sort from the pulpit.
Yep, there you go. That's a great way to put it.
I am going to be the one that manages my counseling load ahead of time, and then coming back from that, filling the pulpit, making sure that's covered, all of my normal duties, so that I can be present doing the thing. Because my domain is that. It's not Lexy's domain, or it's not someone else's. It's mine. So the home is her domain. I'm going to come and assist and help, but even there, I'm going to actually be executing her systems that she has put in place.
Which is why it's important for, as homemakers, to have systems that you can pass off.
Yeah, like it's actually important too. I'm trying to think that way in a time like that. I'm not thinking how many times can I take the kids out to Taco Bell for fun.
No.
Because, it's fun, it's daddy time.
Worse.
It makes everything worse because then when it's back to normal, they're like, I like going to Taco Bell. Really, they probably wouldn't, but I like going to Taco Bell every day, or like they're all miserable and not feeling good.
We actually really like having our kids around postpartum. It's not as helpful. We have learned to have them go away
It's actually
and then
a lot
come
of work.
back. It is a lot of work.
Yeah, because you know how it is, guys. Like your kids acclimate to fun time.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of like normal household duties, normal household decorum.
Yep.
It's just like a vacation versus being in your house. It's different.
Should we maybe look at just a few of these quick questions?
Yeah, let's do that, and then we'll...
I did also want to say, before going back to the questions, that not that history like sets the pattern for us on everything, but it is historically normative for women to have a period of laying in, is often what it was called.
Yeah, I believe that women can bleed to death.
Yeah. Which
if they go back to physical activity too quickly.
I was going to say that I did kind of have to learn that the hard way, is you can restart your whole healing if you are too active too soon within that 6-week period of time, especially. So
yeah, things like trying to do physically, like lifting things or running too quickly, or
and part
too
of
much
that
exertion.
We are in a culture that expects mom to be back at work 2 weeks postpartum, baby in childcare. So we have to realize even the way we think about this has been informed by a society where women are working outside of the home. But you even mentioned, you were like, well, I mean, the Old Testament also just assumes a kindness owed to the woman, that there is a period of healing.
Yeah, she has a period of uncleanness.
Yeah.
That would involve separation to a degree from normal things that differs based on the sex of the child.
Somebody asked, this was one of the first questions. How do you discern good advice from bad advice when it comes to this stuff? I think we covered that a little bit, but
yeah, I mean, there's two levels to good advice and bad advice, and it relates to the kingdoms. So, I mean, there's advice that is contrary to your heavenly good, and that would be like believing something that is doctrinally untrue. Like the idea that women, if they have enough faith, can have a perfect pain-free childbirth because they're not cursed. They're not subject, like, oh, you believe they're cursed otherwise. That would be a view contrary to your heavenly good, because you're believing something that is doctrinally false. And then it's going to bleed into, it will affect how you live in the earthly, in the body, in your life under the sun as well. Because you will be behaving consistently with something that's not true. So if you behave consistently with something that's not true, you will ultimately harm yourself. In the second sense, like life under the sun, just within the earthly realm, in your own body, life as a person, you're evaluating lots of claims that are like not, for example, they're not in the Bible. You're not going to be able to evaluate the effectiveness of one medication over the other with a verse in the Bible. It's not what the Bible's for, and that's not the nature of truth. God made a world, and he made a world that is knowable and rational, and it's governed by laws that are consistent, and he gave us the capacity or the aptitude to, by empiric investigation, taking dominion as we were created in our nature to do, we can discover things that are true, natural truths, like that an NSAID is bad to take when you're in, this age, or when you have this condition. So those truths, you need to develop like a medical literacy to be able to tell woo-woo.
You really do.
And that doesn't mean that every single person has to. This can be trusted counsel, and
it's true.
But there's a reason for specialization. It's a shame that the medical industry has discredited itself so thoroughly in lots of ways, because we ought to be able to have specialists in all these areas where a pastor can tell you, whoa, you're not thinking clearly doctrinally there. Great, he's a specialist. Where a doctor can tell you, hang on, that's actually not physiologically true.
Yeah.
Or medically sound advice that you're receiving. Now, there's always going to be dispute between people's various views.
Which is where you need to take your own brain.
Yeah.
And even prayer.
And then in the once you've done your diligence in to the best of your knowledge, living in accordance with what is true, even in medical terms, you walk in faith. So you don't become obsessed with perfection.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like,
I will say too, when it comes
anxious.
to advice, if you're talking about health advice, get a second opinion. Even if it's a midwife, get a second midwife's opinion.
Yeah, if you have an issue, get multiple opinions. Like, these are principles of wisdom, like there's wisdom in a multitude of counselors. Yep. Great. Yeah, there's a reason that the Lord says that, because maybe this midwife thought something was true, and in her experience it had been such, but really, actually, more commonly, it was some other thing that she didn't experience.
Yeah.
Or she just doesn't have expertise in something, and maybe she's better in another thing. That's
Which
just how people
make
are.
them in general a bad midwife. Something I've learned too is the licensing really does dictate how midwives view naturopathic treatment versus conventional treatment.
Yeah.
Which I just didn't know before. So now I know that. So, okay. Let's see. Do you let older children attend your births?
We would, depending on the child.
We tried to for one of our home births, and just the timing didn't work out. They were asleep, and I didn't realize how progressed I was.
Yeah, and I wouldn't like allow my male children to be at certain stages or places.
I've talked, I don't know if I told you this, I actually was talking to Ari and Ira about this week, because like the three older kids kind of have jobs when mom goes in to labor. Like these are the three things you're in charge of. And because we don't know if the baby's a boy or a girl. So they were all excited about, well, we do want to be there so we can find that out. And I had kind of said to the boys, I was like, well, is it okay if you're just not in the room though, but you come find out with us afterwards? And they were like, oh yeah, that's fine, Mom. That's fine. So, and the boys are like, I don't really want to be around for that anyways, which is, I don't actually like to have a lot of people around.
Yeah, just generally like
in general, but
the kids I would think would be older girls.
But we do like to keep them as much as possible in the house.
Yeah, it's just easier.
It is just easier. So that's our plan this time.
Maybe help if a parent,
grandmas will be
grandma
here.
can come
Grandmas
or something. That's great. But even if grandma can't come, honestly, it's fine.
And that was part of what I was coaching the boys about. I was like, if something happens quickly, this is what you do to take care of the other people until there is an adult here to help you. And they're like, that totally.
They know how to keep Alfred living.
They do. They know how to cook food. They know a lot more. So, somebody asked, which this is a husband. We haven't actually had this, but I'd like to hear your thoughts. I have thoughts. What's the benefit to having both a midwife and a doula for a home birth? First of all, you can't have just a doula for a home birth unless you're doing free birth, which is fine if that's your thing. But a doula is not legally able to catch a baby. So you have to have a midwife. You don't have to have a doula though.
What is a doula?
A doula is like a birth attendant who's really there to kind of advocate for the needs of the mother, or like ensuring that she can free up dad to just focus on mom, but she can also make sure the birth plan progresses as they desired as a family.
Yeah.
So I actually think this depends. I think a husband and a wife, I think with a first time birth, I do think it can be wise to have both. I'm sure husbands are thinking, but do I want to pay the $500 extra to the doula?
Yes, that was one of the first things that would come to mind.
Yeah. I would say yes. Statistically speaking, the number of interventions go down, the number of successes the mother have go up, the safety of the mother and child go up with the presence of a doula. To me, for a first-time birth, if father is not used to having to advocate, I would say you should hire a doula. I also think they're very helpful. I wish I would have had one last time. Well, not really. I had such a quick, Alfred was born within a few minutes of getting to the hospital. My sister-in-law, though, she just had a preemie, was trying for home birth. The doula went with them to the hospital and was still able, even though obviously it was not ideal, she was still able to ensure as much of the birth plan was able to be adhered to as possible, while dad could still focus on mom and baby.
Yeah.
So because it is in high risk, high volatile times like that, where especially in an emergency, if they don't know what your original intention was, they could just start shoving things in the baby. So
doing all the normal stuff.
Correct.
To them normal.
So I think they can be very helpful. So how many more questions?
Let's go ahead and say, since we're already at an hour, let's just say we are going to put the rest of these in the kitchen.
Okay, that's fine. There's
our
quite a bit.
Patron exclusive. We do on our supporter channel, we do a shorter show called In the Kitchen. It's just often super practical stuff like this. So we'll put the rest of those in there. Keep sending us your questions, guys. These are helpful. But any last words before we wrap it up?
I don't think so. You're just so good at talking through this. It's so helpful.
Babe.
It's helpful.
Babe. Well, we hope that this has been a helpful and practical episode for all of our pregnant Americans and, maybe futurely pregnant Americans and other listeners. But thanks for listening in, guys. We will. I should mention that a conference. I know it's like January. This will probably come out February, first week of February-ish. Conference is really right around the corner. So check out newchristendompress.com/2025 and all the details for the conference are there. Love to have a bunch of you guys come out, Bright Hearth listeners, and just hang out and make friends and meet a lot of like-minded folks at the New Christendom Press conference. We had a lot of fun last year with everybody that came out. So other than that, though, basically, thanks for listening.
Bye.
We hope the Lord blesses you. We'll see you next time on Bright Hearth.